Hey everybody, I thought I would just have a look at this chart. It's the chart for Mexico. What we're looking at there is actually the solar return, well, not the solar return, the April ingress chart, which, as I explained in quite a few of my recent videos, is a powerful way of just detecting which countries there may be a lot going on in. And the reason why, as we already saw as well with my Kazakhstan chart, working well there because it showed a lot of activity. Now, I decided to look at Mexico because, as a lot of you will know, Jeff Berwick is out there, Dollar Vigilante, and Max Eigen left Brisbane, or near to Brisbane, the Gold Coast in Australia, to go to Mexico because they believe it's quite good there. You know, the government hasn't really been pushing the same sort of regulations as they are in the rest of the world. Yes, in the main cities, people are all kind of masked up and there are regulations in various shops. But in terms of the government, there hasn't been such an oppressive, controlling, authoritarian stance when it came to this whole COVID era. And generally in Mexico, they say, well, you don't mess with the gangs, but the government don't mess with the gangs either. So it's quite good. So the question is, will it remain that way in Mexico? One thing that stood out for me is I was looking at the Bank of International Settlements, which, as you know, is a kind of reserve bank of reserve banks. So it's the big honto of reserve banks. They have about 3 offices around the world, and one of their offices is in Mexico City. And I believe their current head honto is a guy from Mexico. So that's kind of interesting. So just to get an idea, is Mexico going to be a place that suddenly changes in terms of the trajectory and goes from being a very liberal when it comes to COVID policy to being very authoritarian? So have a look here. Here's the April ingress for the 20th of March, 2022, when the sun is at 0 degrees of Aries. It's cast for Mexico City. And wow, we have Mars in Aquarius, almost in exact conjunction to a midheaven in Aquarius, which is really important because Mexico is an Aquarius country as well. So I found that incredibly significant. As I've said, a planet, particularly a powerful planet like Mars, bang on or in very close conjunction. I'm looking for under a degree, which you've got here because it's like 1053 versus 1040 is incredibly close, the conjunction of Mars to the midheaven, which seems to indicate some sort of danger to the head of state, possibly some sort of uprising. I also look for a big conglomeration of planets in one house, and here we have it. We've got 4 planets and Chiron in the 11th house, the house of Parliament, the house of changes in the law, in the legislature, so that's quite significant. Uranus in Taurus in the subversive house of the 12th, and look at that, North Node, it's not as close, but the North Node on the Taurus ascendant, also quite interesting. And the ruling planet here is Venus, of course, because Taurus, it's Taurus rising. And Venus is also conjunct the midheaven, conjunct Mars. So that seemed to indicate to me that there was going to be some sort of rather radical, disruptive change to the leadership of that country. But let's look a bit more. Here we have a chart. This is the chart for Mexico, born 31st of January. I said it was Aquarius, 1917. And the birthplace is not Mexico City, actually. It's Querétaro. Awful pronunciation. Anyway, as you can see there, the ascendant is Cancer. Mars rules the midheaven. So Mars being on the midheaven in the April ingress chart, really key. These are the transits, and I've set them for the 7th of March. And as you can see here, we have a lot of planets in Aquarius. We have Sun at 11 degrees of Aquarius, and so Uranus is actually in square to that right now. Uranus here in Taurus is squaring the Sun, which is near the cusp of the 8th house, the house to do with money, with debt, with the country's finances, but also, of course, 8th is a house of disruption and revolution, so that's being triggered. Then we have Mars conjunct Uranus, 2 highly explosive revolutionary planets in the 8th house. The 8th house, as I say, it's a house associated with turbulence and change, also money. What's happening? Transiting Saturn is conjuncting that pair in March. So we've got a big hit there with Uranus, which will be squaring the Sun, and later this year squaring Uranus and Mars, aggravating this whole area of disruptive change. And we have the planet Saturn conjuncting those right now. So there could be some sort of money or financial crisis in Mexico that leads to a radical change in government. Who knows? Now look, we've got there Saturn conjunct Neptune in the 1st house. That is pretty typical of a more communist socialist leading country, because Saturn in Neptune is communist, and it's in the first house. And Moon here in the 11th house. Moon is the ruling planet. Don't see any particular significance in that right at the moment. But anyway, just wanted to alert you to that in terms of the transits. And Pluto not doing particularly much. So let's go on and look at the solar arcs, because we're going to see more going on there. So we've got like a triple whammy of stuff going on in Mexico. Here for the solar arcs, very significant. Uranus is conjunct the moon, and moon rules the ascendant. So Uranus, which is natally in the 8th house, which rules here the house of, rules the 8th house as well. So it's in the 8th house, rules the 8th house. And here it's conjunct moon. Moon rules the people, the populace. The ascendant is all about the character of the country, but Uranus conjunct moon could also mean a disruption to the character of the country, which sometimes includes the leader. Could also be major disruption to infrastructure, a little bit of cyber polygon going on, because this is also the borders, the integrity of the country, the infrastructure, the power lines, everything like that. Uranus has a connection too with this sudden disruptive event that I keep talking about. Could be electricity, could be disruption to services and what you need to feel secure, i.e. the moon. Also a disruption to money. So there's a lot there to suggest some sort of chaos enveloping the country. Here we have our midheaven, which is getting quite near to this little conjunction of Saturn Neptune, which tends to be an unlucky one, other than what I said about communism as well. We've got Jupiter here, which is, let me just check, where Jupiter is at 12 degrees of Leo. So it's been opposing the sun. Maybe that's why they've been quite lucky and quite free in that country. But Jupiter, the lucky planet, is moving away from its opposition to the sun, which could mean that sort of waning, that purple patch that they were in has waned a little bit. We have also Saturn, solar arc, here in Scorpio, ready to square the sun, indicating hardship, difficulty, strife, and also a threat to the leader and the leadership. The sun here rules the 2nd house as well. So there's definitely something going on with money, maybe rampant inflation, because look, we've got Jupiter, solar arc, and Saturn, solar arc. They're in square in Leo and Scorpio, and they are both influencing the sun. So I suspect that lending, borrowing, and financial mismanagement has been rife, and now they're going to have to pay the piper. So there's a debt issue here, kind of a financial collapse issue, possibly also a threat to goods, services, food safety in the country due to a weather event or a general chaos and breakdown in law and order, and a possible change in government. So let's watch Mexico, because there seems to be some powerful indications of something fairly radical happening there. Just wanted to say, guys, when I did the Kazakhstan chart, I couldn't find the reference point for which other country had moon on the ascendant at its April ingress when something really important happened. But the example was actually Germany in 1989 in the fall of the Berlin Wall, and it had moon on the ascendant. So I'd say that was more of a good thing than a bad thing. So no matter who's instigating things in Kazakhstan, maybe there can still be a good outcome for the freedom of the people, which I hope. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that, guys. Let's watch Mexico, because that seems a lot of crazy stuff going on. I'm sure you'll agree, a lot of powerful stuff going on in the April ingress, in the transits, in the solar arc, and they're all kind of backing each other up, aren't they? So who knows, Mexico may not be the same for much longer. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a good weekend.